Good day, everyone. Greetings from Leader Associates. This is Zoe, the producer of this webinar, and it's my honor to be today's host. And first of all, thank you all for welcome to join here and gathering here. Today's virtual webinar will also be live broadcasted by YouTube and our Medium partner channels. Before we get started, please allow me some time to cover a few housekeeping items in short. Firstly, who we are. Leader Associate is a global leading event organizer concentrating on renewable energies. In the past few years, we have hosted events across Asia, Pacific, South America, Africa, and Europe. Secondly, please kindly find today's brief agenda on the slides. This webinar mainly focuses on the solar rooftop market in Japan, and there will be 3 keynote speakers to share their opinions and experience in these regions. At last, all audience are welcome to raise questions to the speakers. You can find there is a Q&A box on your control panel. We will select 1 or 2 questions for the speakers to answer after their presentations if there are time allowed. Much appreciated your attention and patience. That is all for the guidance, and now we will begin in today's webinars. First, please allow me to give a brief introduction about the solar rooftop market in Japan. Solar is one of the most promising and popular clean energy in Japan to promote the achievement of carbon neutral, and the rooftop is considered as the main growth driver in Japan over the next decade. The total installed capacity of solar rooftop in Japan has upped to 41 gigawatts by 2020, and during the next 5 years, there are about 14 gigawatt capacity to be explored. Such growth would be triggered by the rising power price on attractive support schemes for large-scale solar and the need for commercial and industrial electricity consumer to reduce the grid consumptions. Self-consumptions would be preferred the option of selling surplus power to the grid and would add the appeal of distributed generations. However, despite such attractive growth and benefits, there are some difficulties in the rooftop solar that should not be overlooked. And Mr. Takuro Sasao will share his more details about this aspect. Mr. Takuro Sasao is the CEO of Japan and North Asia from Enfinity Global. He has been leading Enfinity Global's business in Japan since 2019. Enfinity develops energy solutions to help achieve a net zero carbon footprint and enable a sustainable transition to achieve a carbon-free worldwide. Enfinity currently has projects totally 15 minutes of 300 megawatts in Japan in various stages. So now let's welcome. Mr. Takuro-san. Hi, Takuro-san. Can you hear me? Takuro-san.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hold on a
Great.
second. Yes. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So let me start my presentation.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. My name is Takuro Sasao. I am leading Japanese platform for Enfinity Global. And as Zoe introduced, Enfinity Global is the global, renewable development, finance, building, operation, and we offer a full range of services and own project in renewables area. And we are active in Europe, Asia, and Americas. And we have an office in Madrid, Milan, Tokyo, Hyderabad, and also various places in the US. So we're really the global company. And we have had a lot of experiences in many places. And in Japan, our focus have been more of a ground mount utility scale solar projects. However, while the market evolves, we are looking at various opportunities, including CNI, solar space, commercial and industrial solar space. And I have a little bit of experiences in this area, but so far, the market here has been difficult for us to really accelerate our growth. But anyway, if I can share my observation of the market, plus where the challenges are and how these challenges can be overcome, maybe that could I hope that could be a good presentation for everybody. Anyway, let me start my presentation on RTS rooftop solar projects. Okay. First of all, in this country, we have various challenges in rooftop solar space. My experience thus far on the rooftop space is I had a few discussions with building owners, and they said if they put solar panels on top of their roof, investment is quite large, and it takes a lot of time for them to recover this investment. Typically, more than 10 years. And as a company, as a building owner, they hesitate to invest such a long term for this, solar panels and so on and so forth. If they have no need to really reduce CO2 as a company. And so the company like us, investor in this space, if we can invest in the solar project on the rooftop, and if we can, take the plant as a project and own it for long term, that could be the benefit for the building owner. So I have had discussions with building owners, and they all like the idea of leasing the rooftop to somebody and get the rent from this company, plus buy CO2 free energy from this company. And however, there have been a lot of hurdles. First hurdle was legal hurdle. The rooftop usage right, like lease right, cannot be registered in Japan. It doesn't, we don't have a system to register such right. So if building owner files bankruptcy, we may need to remove our panels and all the equipment and remove it entirely from the rooftop. So if, for some reasons, if the building owner files bankruptcy in like 2 to 3 years, while the investment recovery period is 10 plus years, we will not be able to recover so much of our investment unless we find a substitute roof somewhere, but it's very difficult. And also, if there's such a difficulties, it's extremely difficult to get project finance, like a ground mount utility scale projects. So the finance is very, very difficult. So these two hurdles are really critical for the growth of this market. And also on the technical side, I had a few experiences where especially on the factory rooftop, the factory was very old, and installing the panels on top of the roof, the building itself, roof itself, could not withstand the weight, and they couldn't build it. And they didn't want to rebuild the factory, so of course they needed to give up this rooftop solar project because of that. So, I think this is very difficult. We cannot force the factory owners to rebuild all the factories. So if there's I don't really, have so much information on how we can enhance the structure easily. But if we can, I think the rooftop CNI solar market is probably more available for new buildings with stronger structure. And also, Japan has a unique, very extreme weather conditions and earthquake risks, and these, very high risks need to be taken into account. I think this will probably be a hurdle when we procure insurance. So insurance product, needs to cover this, but whether there's a commercially viable insurance product or not is something we need to investigate, or we need to look into more carefully. Okay, please, next page, please. Yeah, so considering all these factors in Japanese market, just limiting to the CNI sector, rooftop project sector, we need to have certain system to perfect our rights over the rooftop to secure 20-year plus power generation business. So the solar business will continue for long term, and this solar business on the rooftop needs to be seen as a separate business, not only separate from the building. It's a building owner business. It has to be independent business, and this element needs to be insured legally. That's one element. And then if we need to take the credit risk of the building owner, anyway, if this legal change takes time, and I think it's something that needs to be changed on the civil code, I think, but it's not easy. And while we don't have that, maybe in interim, just to control the risk, I think something we would like to have is like insurance product or some kind of credit enhancement structure for the building owner, because we cannot segregate building owner credit risk from rooftop project. So this credit risk control structure plus insurance product, I think something like that would be very useful in the rooftop market growth. And also, probably because of Japan's natural disaster risks, we may need to really limit our rooftop commercial CNI project in newer buildings with, more stringent, stronger structure. But if we have something that I would say makes the investment into building enhancement to withstand rooftop solar facility easy. So if we have some easy structure to enhance the building structure itself and install rooftop solar, that may create the opening of the market, especially for the old building sector. So that could be something. I have no idea how it can be achieved, but with house manufacturers or with construction company, if we can have that kind of dialogue, it may support the growth of this market. It also, I've seen several cases where the government gave out the subsidy for self-consumption projects, and building. Rooftop project can certainly be used for self-consumption. It's very useful. And as Zoe said, we just sell the access to the utility company. So this model should be supported by the government. And if there's a good subsidy coming out from the government, it may make this investment recovery period of rooftop shorter, so that we can mitigate the credit risk exposure of the building owner to the project, and maybe it makes the project more financeable. And lastly, if we have lighter panel, more efficient panel, it will help this sector a lot. And I'm hearing a news that I'm seeing a news that Japanese government will be supporting the technological innovation in renewables area. So I hope some companies in Japan produces very high efficiency lighter panel for this sector, considering Japan's unique situation and promote our rooftop solar sector. I think that could be very interesting. So Japan have been technological, I would say, leaders in this world, and I hope we do something in this rooftop solar sector, so that we can open up Japanese markets to the more broader capitals that are available in the investment area. Currently, I think rooftop solars are relatively, probably building owners, they own the solar facility with the building is really the typical structure. But if we can isolate the solar part from the building and make solar part an independent project and promote more capitals to come in, I think that could really support the growth of Japanese rooftop solar market. So that's something I wanted to present today. And if there's any questions, I can open up for the Q&A now.
Hi, Takuro-san. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Right. Thank you for your presentations, and it gave us a lot of more understandings about the barriers in this market. And we do have received some questions from the audience. And can you see those questions in the Q&A box?
Yes, I see.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, you can answer. You can select the questions and answer them.
Rapid shutdown is not required in Japan. How to mitigate the risk of building getting damaged if something goes wrong? Actually, this is something I cannot answer. Rapid shutdown is the case of emergency, maybe, or is it for the curtailment? If in the case of current situation, so if the building, if this rooftop project on the building damages the grid for some reasons, then it's the owner of this building will be liable at first hand. Then the lessee of the rooftop will be liable to the owner. So of course, any damage will need to be on the rooftop owners, the solar project owners account. But typically, if the contract is between the building and utility company, the first person who needs to front with the utility company will be the building owner. So that is my understanding. But I hope that answers your question.
Hi. Yes, and thank you for your answering, and thank you for your time. And you can, sorry, second. So you can stay in this webinar for our following presentations if you want. And also, I think we will receive more questions from the Q&A box. You are welcome to answer these questions through the box. Hello, Takuro-san.
Yes. Then the next one is, do you think the Japanese regulation regarding rooftop solar is lacking behind in comparison to the European, US market? I think yes, because we have a lot of C&I projects, in US that we're financing with the project financing. And in Japan, that is not available as of now. So I think we're behind. And as compared to Europe, I believe that's the case too. So, Japan has a lot of grounds to gain on this one. What will be the role of energy storage to promote the adoption of rooftop solar? It is very interesting. I think self-consumption plus selling the excess power to the utility company model. This will be done only with the storage. So if we are doing the this operation, storage is something that's critical. It will add cost to the equipment facility, and that's gonna make investment recovery period even longer probably. But we need to really compare cost and benefits very carefully, and probably the only way going forward it makes sense for the rooftop solar is to have battery to kind of adjust when the electricity power goes out to the utility companies. But anyway, that's my my idea, and I think it's a good question, and I think we will need energy storage for the rooftop solar, especially for consumption, self-consumption plus sale model. Do you require, and another question is, do you require fire prevention law in layout design? Actually, I don't know. I'm not an engineer, unfortunately, and I can't really say for sure, but I suppose yes. It should be covered by building code. So if the building is subject to fire prevention law, the attached, the solar facility that's attached to the roof will likely be subject to the same law. That is my understanding.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much for your answering and your presentations. And you are welcome to stay in this room to join our following speakers' speeches. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And so after we know about the barriers and also for next speakers will be the Milan brings his in-house presentations of research in the Univergy 2000. He chief of the department of of the product and strategies. What was has produced for 3 countries in which Univergy is developed 6 solar projects and 2 are Thank you. And just thank him.
Sorry. Sorry, Theo. I think that I cannot hear you completely well. There's. It's busy. Sorry. Hello. I think that maybe you cannot. I cannot hear you well. So I'm not sure if I'm already in the webinar. You can hear me well, maybe. Can you please confirm?
Hi, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, I can hear you well already. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you very much.
Yes. Yeah. Right.
I think that I lost and you were trying to introduce me. So thank you very much. Maybe I'm going to start this webinar. The basic idea is to, I think that Sasao-san has give you a really good approach about what really happens in Japanese market on rooftop solar. I think that maybe this is a really good starting point. My idea is to briefly give you an understanding about what is already happening in solar, rooftop, and utility scale, residential, and the schemes that we're using already in this market. In order to introduce a little bit about Univergy, about my company, we are a global developer, as so I mentioned. Well, we currently have around 6 gigawatts of solar projects ongoing in different markets, and the company, it's a Japanese Spanish company owned by. Sorry, I'm already having some sort of problem. And okay, so sorry about. So in order to let you know a little bit more about us, about Univergy, we are a Spanish-Japanese company established in Japan in early 2013. We are currently developing around 6 gigawatts of solar projects in 14 different countries. And the current situation of the Japanese market, it's what we are going to introduce you here today. So maybe I'm going to do it in this way in order to control a little bit more the slides. So in my case, I arrived to Japan 8 years ago in order to establish the different projects. Since 2012, I have been involved in the development, construction of more than 600 megawatts of projects here in Japan. Only Univergy, we are the second biggest developer in Japan in terms of applications to METI. And well, I have been based and living in Tokyo since 2015. Okay, so we're going to give you a brief idea about what we have done in solar rooftop. You can see, well, the most usual installations of a rooftop that you can find: the net balance, the direct injection to the grid, and the self-consumptions. Well, you know, maybe Sasao-san has mentioned before, but one of the energizers that this market has in the past linked to rooftop solar has been linked to the generous FIT that we had in this country. And thanks to that, Univergy has been involved in the construction and the engineering of the different installations on project here in Japan, okay? So, well, these are different projects in which we have been involved. And in most of the cases, these projects has mentioned the situation already of this market. Sorry, I'm losing a little bit the control of the presentation. Sorry about this.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's okay. I got your copy. Do you want me to do the slides?
No, I think that I'm fine. I think that
okay.
I'm fine. I'm going to use, this way in order to control a little bit in the presentation mode, but I'm not sure about what it's already happening. Okay, so, well, the current FIT for residential PV solar in Japan for less than 10 kilowatt, as I mentioned, it's quite generous, okay, 21 yen per kilowatt hour. So systems that, let's say, that could be more on the size of commercial and industrial for 10 kilo to 50 kilo has 13 yen, and above 12 yen. The current, in order to give you some sort of reference, in order to you to have a little more understanding about how the market goes here in Japan, the current electricity price for residential is 25 Japanese yen kilowatt hour, and the current price for commercial and industrial, it's around 17 yen. It's important to mention as well, and you probably heard that this market moves in a different rhythms and terms about levelized cost of energy. And this is some sort of important issue to have consideration about, okay? The average levelized cost of energy for residential here, it's 250 Japanese yen kilowatt, okay? So in terms about the reference that you have from most mature market, if you think about USA, Spain, Germany, or even Australia, well, we are quite far from this reference. Of course, it's linked to as I mentioned, the FIT that you can enroll for your projects here in Japan. And as well, it's important to consider in order to you to think about how to set up business for storage systems here in Japan, the levelized, and the cost of the systems here, it's about 210 Japanese yen per kilowatt, okay? That it's as well far from what you are probably seeing in other markets. So up to date, what we had here has been a market, good market for rooftop residential solar that has been, of course, linked to the FIT that we have enjoyed. Under my humble point of view, in residential comes through that there are thousands of households that install PV solar in 2009 under FIT scheme, that they are already terminating these contracts. And I think that this is a really good opportunity to adapt their PV systems to storage. And well, think about if it's possible to create some sort of sustainable system. Given the Japan exposure to certain natural phenomena, I think that makes a lot of sense to install a storage system with your solar system here. I think that it's quite interesting. Recently, we had a serious interruption in the east of the country due to a strong earthquake that show us certain weakness that we need to cover up with this solar plus storage system. You probably have heard about another system that it's zero-gene installation for residential and sometimes for CNA, in which customers enter into a PPA with provider, saving in electricity as well. Well, sometimes if it's eligible, sharing potential revenues for selling energy to the grid were applicable, as I mentioned. This model of third-party ownership, no money down, it seems to have a lot of potential in the Japanese market. my honest opinion moves in the same way, especially in the CNI market, about what has been mentioned by Sasao-san, and it's that I'm seeing a huge stopper about the no registration of the lease agreement. To me, it's a quite significant issue because from the credit risk and bankability of the project, it's a big, really big issue. As you probably heard, under the Property Registration Act, you cannot make a registration of a part of a building. So rooftop cannot be registered, and a legal safety standard that we have been using in other markets, it's impossible to adapt up to date in Japan, and this is a serious issue. Comes from the perspective of the sponsors and the developers that huge companies like Ion or like huge Japanese corporation plus the web services, the big web services companies are quite interested in the self-consumption. I'm seeing that potentially self-consumption has a huge potential in Japan in this interim in which we need to understand if we can overcome these important legal issues. I think that self-consumption with storage, it could be quite interesting. We must mention as well, and you saw in the slide, that the prices of energy here in Japan in terms about the global average are quite high. And this is something that we must take into consideration. The other point that it's important to mention is that net metering. So net metering, it's something that it's available for producers and consumers here in Japan. It's linked to the kind of installation. It's of course linked to you if you are going to use subsidies or not, that you have to certify your installation through METI, but as a complement of the self-consumption installation with solar, it will be something that it could be interesting to take into the into consideration. Okay, so there's some sort of important news that we have been receiving in the last months coming from government companies, and that we are seeing that potentially will have an energizing effects in terms about how to speed up certain process in which, let's say, we can convince to Japanese authorities in order to be more flexible and in order to adapt these legal considerations mentioned before for this market. The first one, it's something that you have been reading in the last months, and it's that Japan has set the target for net zero carbon emission by 2050. Okay, it's really good. I think that it's something that comes as well in a moment in which China, Korea has moved in the same direction in order to fulfill this goal of 2050 in order to reach this net zero carbon emission. It's really good. From that announcements, we have been seeing another important news that maybe can facilitate and kind of speed up this process. Okay, I mentioned net zero emission by 2050. Later on, the Japanese government facilities will switch to renewable source for 30%. It's a really good complement, and especially having in mind that most of these facilities will install solar in the rooftops, and maybe it will be a really good chance to let them know about the issue that we mentioned before, the registry of the lease agreement. Okay, we have been seeing in the news that Japan, it's already thinking into offer a 10% tax break for companies investing in grid technologies. Okay, has been proposed by the ruling party, and discussions are already ongoing. I think that maybe it could be another energized effect that could maybe speed up this. And of course, I think that this is the most important. Private companies has an important role in order to show their commitment with renewables and in order to speed up everything. You know, major firms, including Sony, Panasonic, Nissan, urge to the government in order to speed up and in order to increase the renewable energy goal that Japan already has. Okay, there's different groups. You have been reading about RE 100. There's a group of 92 corporations here in Japan, known as the Japan Climate Initiative, that well, has been pushing a lot in the last months, doing lobby in order to convince to the government in order to move from these 22-24% for 2030 to almost double, 40 or 50%. These are really good news. This moves into an scenario in which sponsor, developers, and players of the involved in the Japanese market, we can push a little bit to the government in order to try to speed up everything. Moving on to the scenario in which we are already in Japan for solar, I would like to give you a brief introduction about the systems that we are using. Okay, this is the well, this is the third year, 2021, in which METI has held auctions. Okay, in the last one, I'm proud to say that we won with Univergy won with 4 projects, 10 megawatt AC, 14 mega DC. So, well, if you want to attend this auction, well, you need to move with projects over 250 kilo. Later on, we are going to take a look about the last announcements or the government in order to implement new schemes. METI tender for 2021 is expected to hold almost 2 auctions for solar, in which we are going to start in 11 yen, that it was it's gonna be the cap price or the starting price in which we are going to start the 8th auction here. So, of course, probably you have heard about the new system that the Japanese government is already trying to implement. Okay, that it's the FAP or feed-in premium. Well, METI has called this supply promotion subsidy formulated like, well, unit price per volume electricity supply through market transaction. Later on, we are going to see some sort of update. Okay, so it's a new supply promotion subsidy under the new scheme or RE. The premium, it's something that it's set between some sort of a standard price and reference price calculated based on market price. About the FIP, what we know already, it's more or less that projects, solar projects from 50 kilo up to 1 megawatt will be able to choose between FIT and FIP. And the projects above this power will not be subject to auction. Well, the projects, about this power will be subject to choose between auction and FIP. What we are seeing already is that about the pros of this system, if it's stabilized correctly, it can be a good complement in terms about to give some sort of support to levelize the costs of energy to adapt to the totally unsubsidized scenario. The cons, up to date with the information that I have been checking, and honestly speaking, I think that it's difficult to be bankable. And I think that the work that the committees has already over the table, it's in order to adapt and adjust this system in order to make it bankable. This is my humble point of view, but I really invite you to take a look deeper in the details that has been shown today. So this market, has been one of the markets that has so more generous feed-in tariff system that we started in 2012 with 40 yen without tax. And we are already in 11 yen after 9 years. It's one of the oldest feed-in tariff system that has been used in this industry and in the world. Probably, and honestly speaking, I think that we are about to finish. There's something important to mention about the Japanese market, and it's that as in the other market, you can sell the energy to the full market or to the electricity regulated market, the JPEX, as a power producer, okay? You need to register and there's a fee that you need to pay and a transaction fee that as well you need to pay in order to help your installation to the GPX. In order to sell your energy, you need to sign an electricity generation adjustment supply contract with the utility company, and you need to as well to register for the Organization for Cross-Regional Coordination of Transmission Operator in Japan. And well, you know, this is already an option that maybe we're going to see when this market has consumed these different systems that we have been seeing up to date. As well, I think that Japan has a huge potential for PPA. Honestly speaking, I think that we are already, as other players, trying to improve and to give some sort of perfection to these contracts through real projects and real off-takers, okay? I try to summarize probably the two schemes that we are going to see more often in this market, okay? So the retail PPA, or the one in which you are going for the utility on behalf of the generation will deliver the energy to the off-taker, in which, you know, the buyer, it's not subject to wholesale power market price fluctuation, that it's really good, a fixed rate. It's easy to verify that your energy is produced by renewable source. And this is important because I think that in this market, the renewable energy certificates will start to have an important role. And well, I think that this is what we're going to see. What you need to have into consideration in this model, of course, the wheeling charge fee. that it's linked to the power that you are going to produce. And of course, financially speaking, if you are going to produce a super high voltage project, will be less the impact that you are going to have in your in the balance sheet of your project. Because as a reference for super high voltage, you're going to pay 1.3. This is prices coming from utility as TEPCO, and you are going to pay 2.35 yen kilowatt hour if you are using high voltage. And honestly speaking, I think that in short term, we are going to hear about this scheme, that it's the virtual PPA scheme, that it's a pure financial scheme in which there's a contract for different, and it's hedged against changes in electricity prices, as well generates renewable energy certificates. You can link the usual renewable energy certificates that we have here in Japan, the 𝗘𝗺𝗶𝗲𝗍 or the 𝗘𝗺𝗵𝒋 green energy certificates. And well, it's quite interesting scheme in which, as you know, there's no physical delivery of power. It's a pure financial product. And well, it's, or maybe I think that we are going to hear about this system quite soon, because I'm absolutely sure that different legal firms in Tokyo are currently working in order to make some sort of perfection to these systems, okay? About what I mentioned, okay, it's quite important to have in mind that the role that that will have the green energy certificates in Japan. Okay, the most usual sources to provide the electricity here in Japan are coal, natural gas, and oil, and only a small proportion of this energy comes from PV, solar, hydro, or biomass. Okay, so reason why it's necessary to create a certificate in order to guarantee the original renewable energy, and these different green energy certificates that you can find in Japan. It's the non-fossil fuel value certificates, 𝗘𝗺𝗶𝗲𝗍, and green energy certificate. The non-fossil value certificates can be given to low power sources as renewable or nuclear. It's traded in the JPEX, and well, up to date, these certificates were only available for power generators under FIT scheme. These certificates were created in 2019 for the retail electricity sellers, which emerged after the liberalization of the market. That it was not in 2016, because one of the curious things about the Japanese electricity market, it was that it was liberalized before the Second World War II, okay? It was nationalized during the war, and it was privatized after the war. So during that time, in most of the cases, the 10 most important utilities in Japan has had a monopoly. In 2000, the market liberalization begins with super high voltage. In 2004, 2005, start with the high voltage, and finally 2016 appears the low voltage for households and shops. Here in Japan, already if you live in Tokyo, you have more than 200 different retail companies in order to offer to you different companies. It's called Denkis, okay? So 𝗘𝗺𝗶𝗍𝗍, of course, has been issued for projects to aim to reduce carbon emissions, okay? The impact of these projects are measured against CO2 reduction, and given that values, the credits are given. And green energy certificates, that to me seems that probably it's going to be the ones that we are going to see more often in this industry. And this scheme enable to individuals and corporations to protect and support the renewable energy sector. And generators can apply for the certification for the amount of green power that they generate within a period, okay? So, and if of course, it's quite interesting that these kind of credits could be traded and sold to anyone. Green energy certificates, it could be purchased by anyone, the credit as well, and non-fuel fuel certificates can be purchased by retailers, okay? You have that the main source of energy that could be linked to this power is and well, I think that time is running out and maybe it's quite important. Only to mention and to finish up my intervention, I think that the last comments from METI committee that we have news maybe, and we have been reading in the last weeks, okay? There is some sort of figure that we can see already for the decommissioning cost reserve. We have been speculating with the amount that will be necessary in order to cover with this reserve-based price, and it's linked to the different FITs. As you can see, the starting price that has been proposed and need to be confirmed, this is important to say, okay, comes from 1.262 yen kilowatt hour for the biggest and higher feed-in tariff up to 0.66, and for the expected feed-in tariffs and support schemes that we are going to have in 2021. We mentioned about the feed-in premium. The feed-in premium need to be improved. I think that the committee is already working, and maybe the necessary improvements must move from the key issue to make this system bankable in order to give peace of mind to the different generators and the different sponsors and players in the market. It's important as well to mention that under discussion already, we have the coming auctions that will be held for METI that will start this year with the Solar Round 8, and that we will start in 11 Japanese yen kilowatt hour, okay? Of course, it's necessary to mention that we are going to have an onshore wind auction that with the starting price of 17 yen. We are waiting for news, and probably good news for the offshore wind projects and installation. I think that I have consumed my time. Has been a pleasure. Thank you very much to the to Leader Associate to invite me because probably we are in a hurry, and I am in a hurry in order to leave. Zoe, I would like to give.
I need to talk, so maybe a little bit later. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. I'm not sure if you can hear me. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so in order to facilitate, because I consume my time and I am a rush, so I'm already showing in the screen my email address to everyone that could be interested to share with me and to ask me about the questions and answer. If you forward to me as well, and I'm going to take interest to make some sort of screen capture in order to answer to everyone. Thank you very much to everyone, and has been a pleasure to attend. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Joe. Thank you so much for your time. And we definitely have more understandings about this market through your thorough presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So after we have the two amazing speakers who introduced to us about the opportunities and the barriers of about the hold on a second, I will check the screen sharing now. So, so by far we have learned about the opportunities and also its barrier and latest updates of its markets. And also, I would like to introduce our final speakers, Mr. Millan. He is going to give a presentations about the latest case studies in other Asian regions. So Mr. Millan has over 15 years of international experience, 5 years of which in the down and the middle steam value chain of the solar industries, serving at senior management positions in mainland China, Hong Kong, and Singapore with the leading project developers. Millan is currently the CEO of Hexagon 𝗘𝗺𝗵𝗲, a project development platform covering Vietnam, Thailand, Philippines, and Japan. And hi, Millan, can you hear me?
Hi, Zoe.
Hi, hi. And yes, I can hear you, but I think your voice is quite low.
Is it a little bit better now?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. I don't know why I cannot start my video.
Just hold on a second, I will check. I'm not sure. I think your camera is on, but there's no images of you.
It doesn't matter. Most important is to share my screen, so I'm not so pretty today anyway.
Okay, you can start. You can try the screen sharing.
Yep.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so I'm going to be very brief because the presentations of Jose and the previous speaker were very, very intense, very informative. I think a lot of questions are already answered, and I'll just give another perspective, another point of view on Japan. First of all, a little bit of introduction about Hexagon 𝗘𝗺𝗵𝗲. We are a Singapore-based project developer. We have currently 4 countries on our map, including Japan, where we have a joint venture to develop and operate commercial and industrial rooftop projects. We're headquartered in Singapore with key focus on Vietnam, Thailand, and we're incorporating a company in Taipei, in Taiwan as well, and in South Korea. So our key focus has been and will be CNI for the time being. We do a little bit of utility scale solar in Vietnam only, but majority of our work is focused on rooftops. We have closed about 50 megawatts so far with Vietnamese off-takers. Part of it is actually in Thailand. And we're moving towards Japan, where we have incorporated a subsidy and a subsidiary, and we are starting to develop rooftop projects with a local partner. So just a little bit of a brief on the market conditions. I think I'll keep it very brief because, as I said, it's being covered extensively. Japan has over 60 gigawatt of solar installations to date, which makes it one of the most mature markets in Asia, most saturated as well, where local players are covering the entire value chain from manufacturing all the way to financing and asset management. So we really have a really highly competitive, highly saturated market dominated by local players. And the installed capacity is one way to look at it. Grid parity on industrial electricity cost versus feed-in tariff extends. It's already there. As Jose mentioned, we are looking at price delta of 5 yen right now. But this number will continue growing with the escalating electricity tariffs for industrial and commercial consumers. Average installations per year are to remain stable, according to Fitch, of approximately 3.3 to 3.5 gigawatt per year for the next 3 years. But then after 2024, we're looking at expected minimum of 4 gigawatt peak, which will be rooftop alone. This is going to be a trend that will continue for about 5 years. Small systems, or the so-called residential installations of up to a peak, will continue to benefit from higher feed-in tariff in the long term. But I share the same opinion with the previous panelists that for larger projects, we'll either see depleting feed-in tariffs or rather other form of revenues. And so such could be the alternative post-feed-in revenues could be RECs, renewable energy credits or renewable energy certificates. We have a few case studies, a few examples already. A successful implementation by Shikoku Electric Power has strike contracts at 7 yen per kilowatt hour. This may be coming across a little bit too low to some, but as an additional revenue to a rooftop solar system, it's quite a substantial revenue. RE100 companies, the so-called RE100 leading multinationals that joined the the RE100 organization will lead the transition into power purchase agreements or self-consumption rooftop power purchase agreements. We can see a lot of those already happening due to their commitments towards their global headquarters to reduce carbon footprint or to procure renewable energy. We see leading companies manufacturing or operating in Japan having already absorbed or in process of planning. We are currently talking to two multinational conglomerates for installations of their facilities in Japan. And so we see a lot other developers are doing the same. One more example is 𝗘𝗺𝗃𝗲𝗃, one of Japan's largest home builders. They launched a scheme for PPA with homeowners to acquire surplus power that is not consumed on site, and the RECs, the equivalent RECs to it, at 10 yen for buildings that they have built and 11.5 yen for any other buildings. And they are selling this power and RECs to those RE100 companies in the so-called virtual PPA structure, which is something that my personal opinion is that it will pick up steadily over the next few years. So total rooftop C&I approachable market in Japan is estimated to be at 50 gigawatt peak, and I think that's a relatively conservative number. We do have average electricity price forecasted to continue growing with a minimum of 1.5% per annum. So these are all market and macroeconomic conditions that will enable the rooftop CNI segment to pick up steadily. In terms of execution, I think, as I mentioned, there is Japan is one of the most saturated markets. So for foreign developers or investors to penetrate the market, there is a need for a strong local partnership with a locally established company. And so this is the very first step. Again, we have seen foreign developers successful in the country, including Univergy. But in most cases, there is a strong partnership with a local company. Project funding remains in Japan as well. As I mentioned, basically the entire value chain, including financing. And the key advantage, as everyone knows, is the very low interest rates, very high tenor, and so on, very long tenor. But the CNI segment or the rooftop projects are subject to credit lines. There is no much non-recourse project financing right now for rooftop solar, which means that either there is some sort of recourse or developers or investors are using established credit lines or any other sort of financial instruments to replace non-recourse financing. So scaling up a portfolio is a key difficulty because average size of CNI systems in Japan are probably the smallest all around, probably around the world. I think estimated is about 300 kilowatt peak per system. This is, of course, another known fact that roofs in, or rather space in Japan is fairly optimized. And so the average size of the system falls down. Big international Japan headquartered corporations will be the early adopters of CNI rooftop. Clusters of industrial entities or business parks and those large corporations will be the key target for local and international developers for the next couple of years. I think these are the so-called tier one off-takers who everyone wants to team up with because of their financial credibility and so the forecastability of the payments for the PPAs. We have seen a couple of cases where factories are a bit too old and the rooftop definitely needs to be reinforced to match the local building standards. Actually, probably a big chunk of those 50 gigawatt approachable market is rooftops that wouldn't qualify due to their strength, but there are solutions to this as well. We have looked at 2 factories where we actually convinced the management to interrupt manufacturing in order to reinforce roofs. So this is also not an impossible challenge to deal with. Leasing a rooftop, as mentioned earlier as well, is currently not feasible legally in the country. So there are challenges around this, and I think unless something changes in the regulatory framework, we'll see much more self-consumption projects instead of leasing rooftop space and selling to the grid for now. Lack of mainstream insurance policies is something that is also disturbing the development of rooftop solar. We do have a couple of insurers looking at this, but there is no standard in the industry yet. And the reason is very clear. This has been done largely on a residential scale, not so much on commercial and industrial, where a lot more potential complications may occur. And so this is an area also where an improvement is needed. Last point on the execution part is that we will be looking at very high efficiency solar panels. This will be mostly driven by local manufacturers or international with very high efficiency rates. We have seen such implementation of such panels in other countries as well, particularly in Taiwan, where again space is also constrained, and so there is a local government support of first of all locally manufactured but also high efficient panels, which is something that I could foresee happening in Japan as well. So I think that's pretty much all of it. I am open to questions, and this is my contacts. So thank you very much.
Hi. Hi, Milan. Thank you for your presentations. And we do have questions from the Q&A box. So it would be great if you can answer some of them. And Michael has asked, what about the newest technological breakthrough with the solar rooftop installations? Do you want to answer this one? Hello? Hi, Milan.
Yes, I see two questions. What kind of operation and maintenance is needed, or ideally for rooftop CNI type PV in Japan? I think there is no difference between standard operation and maintenance in Japan or any other country. Operation and maintenance is ideal. Is actually not standard. The actual scope of operation and maintenance depends on the location of the facility, on the manufacturing of the factory, what type of manufacturing, how much they pollute the roof. So there is no standard. I think there is very many professional O&M suppliers in the country who are approaching this on a case-by-case basis and are providing offers for each particular system and the solution. I think that's the answer that came just now.
Yes, thank you. And we got also 3 more questions. Maybe you can select some of them to answer if you still have time.
Yeah, so there is a question regarding innovative products such as lightweight modules. Yes, this is especially for buildings that have not very strong roofs. I think lightweight panels are a good option. However, there is a challenge with bankability of such because there has not been significant track record in such products. So it can be essentially a little bit more challenging to finance projects using lightweight panels. But apart from that, it's just a product that is sometimes more applicable to particular roofs than others.
Yes, thank you. And there are 2 more questions. Can you see them? Hello, Mr. Milan.
I don't see any outstanding questions, to be honest.
Okay, I see. Thank you for your time. And well, thank you so much for your speeches and your time for answering the questions. And hope to see you in the future of our event.
Thank you, Zoe. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye. So now it has come to the end of our webinars. I would like to sincerely thank you for our speakers and the audience. Thank you for your time and the support. We hope today's webinar helped you to have a better outlook towards Japan's rooftop solar. If you want to communicate more about solar energy in Japan, we are more welcome you to join our upcoming event, Solar Energy Future Japan 2021. It will be organized in Yokohama this June 17 and 18. This event is formally known as Japan Solar and Energy Storage. With the combination of a conference and an exhibition, it will cover the topics of mega projects, energy storage, rooftop, and more. So feel free to contact us about more details. And thank you again for your attendance, and hope to see you in our next webinars this April 27 to discuss about incorporating energy storage with rooftop. Thank you. See you.